Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Neuroshima Hex, published by Portal Games. The war between humans and machines is taking its toll, and the survivors are splitting off into various factions that are warring over territory. And in the post-apocalyptic world that this game is set in, it's not enough to survive. You need to destroy your enemies. So join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. Each player will select one of the 4 factions included in the game and take all of those tiles, which you can distinguish by their similarly colored fronts and backs. You should also collect the faction reference chart and 2 headquarters tokens. I'll be setting up a 2-player game with the blue and yellow faction, so I'll return the rest to the box. You're going to need to shuffle up your tiles, but before you do that, flip them all upside down, and you'll notice that one of them has a unique back. And that one is your headquarters. So set that aside and shuffle the rest of them into a single face-down stack. Now place the game board between the players. Inside this thick border is the main playing area, and these outer spaces are only used in games with more players. Now take one of your headquarters tokens and place it on the 20 space found here. This represents the current health of your headquarters tiles. So as the game goes on and your headquarters takes damage, you'll move your token down this track, which wraps around over onto this side. If you'd prefer, you can track the health of your headquarters with one of these included damage dials. But for this video, I'm just going to use the track. These headquarter tokens are just extras that can act as replacements, so I'll return them to the box. Also place the wound and net tokens in piles nearby. Throughout this video, to help you keep track, I will refer to these factions as the yellow and blue one. But they do have specific names, Hegemony and Borgo. And if you flip over these reference charts on the back, you'll find a background to tell you a little bit of the story behind the faction, the kind of deck that it is, and some good tactical advice, especially if it's your first time playing that particular faction. The rules state that the first player is chosen by the owner of the game, and they can choose themselves. Or you can pick randomly. We'll say that the blue player is going first, and they will take their headquarters tile and place it on any one of these empty spaces. When placing a tile, you can rotate it however you want. You just have to make sure that it lines up with the spaces as they're shown. Then the next player will do the same, and they can even place their headquarters adjacent to the enemy headquarters. It just has to be in an empty space. In this case, the yellow player will go here. And that's the setup. In Neuroshima Hex, you'll be drawing tiles from your stack and then figuring out how best to use them to protect your own headquarters while attacking your opponents. If you can reduce an opponent's headquarters health to 0, then you win. If the game ends before that, then the player whose headquarters has taken the least damage is the winner. Now, the first couple of turns have some unique steps. So let's take a look at how they work. The first player will draw a single tile, and players always take tiles from the top of their faction stack and place them face up in front of themselves where all of the players can see them. Now the player chooses whether to use the tile, which typically means placing it on the board, or they can keep it for later, or discard it into a separate discard pile. In this case, we're going to have the blue player use the tile and place it on the board, and I'll talk in more detail about how you use tiles a little bit later. Now the other player goes, but they get to draw 2 tiles, again, placing them face up in front of themselves and deciding separately what to do with each one. So they could play one, save the other, discard both, discard one of them. The choice is up to them. Maybe in this case, the yellow player decides to use this tile, placing it here, and discards the other one. Turns will now go back and forth between the players, but from this point on, they'll follow a fixed pattern. Now, at the start of your turn, you'll draw until you have 3 tiles face up in front of you. So if you had saved a tile from the previous round, then you'll only draw 2. Once you have 3 tiles in front of you, you now need to choose one of them to discard. So every turn after drawing up, you will then be deciding which one of these tiles do I think is going to be the least useful to me. Then, with the tiles that remain, for each of them, you'll decide whether to use, keep, or discard them. Players will take turns back and forth until the game ends. So to play the game, you need to understand how to use the tiles. And you may have noticed There's a lot of tiles, and I'm not going to go over each one. Thankfully, each faction has a reference chart that will tell you how the tiles work. So in order to understand the language of this chart, you are going to need to understand some concepts. And that's what I'm going to go over, so that no matter which faction you choose, you'll be able to understand the rules that are written here. Units are one of the primary types of tiles that you have. And they're made up of your headquarters, which we saw earlier, various warriors, which will show a character pictured in the center, and modules, which have a gear-like symbol in the middle, and then usually some spokes coming out of that. When placing a unit, as we mentioned before, they have to go into empty spaces, but you can rotate them in any direction. However, once placed, they cannot later be moved or rotated unless a specific effect causes them to. Otherwise, they will stay on the board until defeated. The other type of tile are instant actions, and these will have a primary black symbol in their center. Instead of placing them on the board, you indicate when you want to use one, its effect then resolves, and it's placed directly into your discard pile. If immediately after drawing new tiles, you only have instant actions in front of you, including at the start of the game, when you're only drawing one or two at a time, then you can choose to discard all of those tiles and then redraw. But don't take that to mean that instant actions aren't important. For example, this is a battle instant action, and it's one of the most crucial tiles in the game. It's unique for a couple of reasons. First, when played, the player's turn will end after the battle is resolved. So if I wanted to play this tile during my turn, I'd want to make sure I played it first and then use the battle tile. Secondly, when a battle is played, now the warriors on the board will fight. Up until that moment, they're just getting into position, waiting for the fighting to begin. So hopefully, you've positioned your units so that when it's time to attack, they'll be able to protect your headquarters and damage your opponents. So what I'd like to do right now is skip ahead a few turns, put a few more units on the board, and show you how a battle is resolved. And in this way, not only will you learn how battles work, but also the purpose and function of many of the different types of tiles you'll find in the game. We'll say it's the blue faction's turn, and they've drawn these tiles. Now, first we have to discard one of them, and I'll choose this instant action. If I use the battle action next to start a battle, then I won't be able to play any of the other tiles that I have, and I do want to use this. So I'm going to place it first, putting it on the board here. This is a medic module. Modules will affect friendly units that are adjacent on the sides of the module that have these connecting lines. These will provide no benefit to enemy warriors that may also be connected to them. I don't have any friendly models that are adjacent to this module, so it's not giving me a benefit. Well, not yet, but I have a plan. Here's an example of a warrior that is connected to its own module and will gain this benefit, and we'll see how that works in just a moment. It's worth mentioning, in a battle, units will only attack enemies on the sides of their hex, which are showing triangles, like this one. Short triangles indicate melee attacks, which only affect adjacent enemies. So this warrior attacks only on this side, in this direction, and this warrior attacks back in this direction and also into this space here. A long triangle is a ranged attack, and that can hit adjacent enemies, or one's further away in a straight line. Right now, this warrior isn't pointing at any enemies. And remember, I said when placed, a unit doesn't move again. But one exception to that is if they have a mobility symbol, which is this arrow inside of a gold circle. On my turn, I can move this unit to an adjacent empty space, like this one here, and I can also rotate the tile any amount. So I'm going to rotate it like this. Now I'm pointing at an enemy, and you'll notice I've managed to connect it to this module that I placed, which was my plan looking ahead. So now all I have left in front of me is this battle instant action. And just because I have it doesn't mean I have to use it. I could discard it or save it for a later round, but I'm looking at the board and I'm feeling pretty confident. So I will use it, putting it in the discard pile. And now let's go back to the table and see how a battle is resolved. All of the warriors on the board will now fight in order of their initiative value. This is the white number that you see inside of a black circle. Look for the highest value on the battlefield, and all units sharing that number will attack simultaneously. Resolve all those attacks before removing any casualties from the board. Then you resolve the attacks from units with the next highest initiative value, and so on all the way down until you've resolved initiative level 0. In some rare cases, units may not have an initiative value, so they don't directly attack, but they can provide other benefits, which we'll see in a moment. The highest initiative currently on the board appears to be these various 3s. But we can't forget, other tiles may provide bonuses. For example, every headquarters provides a particular benefit to its faction. The blue one shows this symbol, and it means that all adjacent friendly units gain +1 to their initiative value. So this warrior here, which has 3, is actually an initiative value 4 because of this boost. As it's the only level 4 on the battlefield, it's the only one that will attack at this time, and it performs melee attacks on both of these sides. Now, there's no enemy here, so this attack does nothing, but there is one here. One hit is all that is needed to destroy a unit. And since all the 4s have attacked, we can now remove any casualties, which would be this one, and it will go to its owner's discard pile. Now, all of the warriors with an initiative level of 3 will resolve. The order, again, doesn't matter, as all of the attacks will happen simultaneously, and casualties are only removed once all of the warriors of that level have attacked. So let's pick this one to resolve first. It will perform 1 melee attack on this side, which will do 1 damage to this warrior. Now remember, I said that 1 damage is enough to defeat a warrior, but this one has a toughness symbol. And for each of these symbols on a unit, it will increase the number of hits required by 1. So we'll show the damage we did do with this token. But wait, this yellow warrior is beside its headquarters. And the effect here says that it gives all friendly units with a melee attack +1 to their attack strength. Essentially, this unit hits for 2, not 1. So this unit will be destroyed. But we won't remove it until all of the initiative 3 warriors have attacked. I like to put damage tokens on units, even if they're certain to die, just to help me keep track of the attacks that have already been resolved. This initiative 3 blue warrior has a ranged attack on this side, so it will do its damage to the first enemy unit in a straight line from it, regardless of the distance and number of friendly troops in the way. So in this case, it will hit the base. If there had been another enemy unit closer in that line, then it would have been hit instead. And I should point out that modules can be destroyed just like units when they take 1 point of damage. Before continuing with our example, I want to show you another attribute that can affect ranged attacks. Some units will have armor. That's this thick black border you'll find on some of their edges. Armor reduces the ranged attack damage by 1 on that side. So if these units were on the board and this warrior was rotated like this, then the ranged attack here would have no effect. It would stop at this unit and be blocked by the armor. It wouldn't carry through and hit this unit. However, armor is not effective against melee attacks. In a battle, this unit would damage this warrior. Also, if the ranged attack had a strength of 2 or more, the armor only blocks 1 point of that damage. The rest will get through. Alright, so going back to our example, this value 3 warrior will do its ranged attack to this enemy, causing 1 hit, which will be enough to defeat it. So, are we done with our initiative 3 attacks? Although this warrior doesn't have any valid targets, remember, even though it shows a 3, it's actually a 4 and already attacked, so it won't attack again during initiative level 3. That said, some warriors may have 2 initiative values, and that means their attacks will trigger at both times during a battle. So when initiative level 2 is resolving, this warrior would hit, damage, and remove this one. Then during initiative level 1, it would attack again and destroy this enemy. You know what? There's something else we can't forget. This warrior that we just defeated isn't quite done on the battlefield. It only shows a value of 2, but it's connected to a friendly scout module that gives +1 initiative to all friendly connected units. So this is actually a 3 and will get to perform its attack now before it's removed from the battlefield. And it does melee attacks on 3 different sides, and one of them is adjacent to my headquarters, so I'll put a damage marker there. Thankfully, this wasn't the side facing my headquarters. It shows 2 triangles. That means it does 2 hits of damage. And there are even some units that can do 3 hits of damage on a single attack. Over on this side, we see 1 more melee damage, which will hit this unit and will destroy it. Or does it? Remember this medic module that I placed earlier? Here's its effect. When an attached unit would suffer any amount of damage from a single source, ignore that damage and instead discard the medic module. Now, if the unit was being attacked by 2 separate warriors during the same initiative round, you would get to choose one of the attacks to ignore, but the other would still happen. So, this damage will not happen, but I do have to remove the medic from the field. Now, since all of the Initiative 3 units have attacked, we can remove the casualties from the board and subtract the damage done to both of the bases. In this case, 1 damage was done to yellow and 1 damage was done to blue. Now we'll resolve the warriors with an initiative of 2. There's 1 here on the board, but it has a net token on top of it. Nets are immediately placed on a unit that is adjacent to an enemy unit that has a net symbol on its adjacent side. You don't have to wait for a battle to place the net token on. Instead, it happens right away. While in a net, a unit can't move, attack, or use its abilities. Nets can even be placed on a headquarters or a module. Now, this was a good move for yellow, because this unit would have attacked for 2 damage on this side, which would have gone directly to their headquarters. There are no level 1 initiative units, so we'll skip that phase and move right to initiative level 0, which applies to both of the bases. And you'll see they have melee attacks on all of the sides. The blue base here has no adjacent targets, so there's no effect. However, even though the netted unit cannot attack, it can be attacked. And it's adjacent to this headquarters, so it will take a damage and is destroyed. So it will be removed from the battlefield and discarded. As soon as you reduce an opponent's headquarters to 0 health, then you win the game. Otherwise, you keep taking turns. A battle will also be resolved and end the current player's turn as soon as they place a unit that fills in the last space on the battlefield. As the game goes on, your draw pile will shrink. And if your stack ever runs out while you're drawing and you have less than 3 tiles in front of you, you don't have to discard one like you normally would. Also, as soon as a player draws their last tile, neither player can play battle instant actions. So the blue player could put this unit on the board, but this battle action is basically useless. You can just discard it. When your draw pile runs out, the other player will get 1 more turn, and then the final battle is initiated. This is resolved like any other battle. It's simply the last one that will happen in the game. If a headquarters has still not been destroyed, then the player with the healthiest headquarters wins. If there's a tie, then each player takes 1 more turn. If you have no tiles left to draw, you may still have abilities from your active units on the board that you can use. Then another final battle takes place, and if there's still a tie, the game ends in a draw. I should mention, when a headquarters is destroyed during a battle, be sure to finish the entire battle, because if the other player's headquarters is also destroyed, then the game ends in a draw. And that's everything you need to know to play Neuroshima Hex. The rules also have instructions for 3 and 4 player games, team play, and solo puzzle challenges that you can attempt. And once you've mastered the 4 factions that come in the box, there are also expansion factions that you can pick up to add to the variety. Now, I did say I haven't gone over all of the different tiles, but now you should know enough about how to play the game that when you read these reference charts, it will make sense how to use a faction. And honestly, the best way to learn a faction is to play it. So if you'd like, you can subscribe to our channel, and in future episodes, we're going to do a full playthrough of Neuroshima Hex so that you'll be able to see the majority of tiles from 2 of the factions at least, and you can even participate in the gameplay. If you have any questions at all, though, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.